Good to see you, everyone. My name is Robbie Howell. Mods matter a lot to Age of Empires 2, and more recently I have been hearing stories from modders who are feeling burnt out and frustrated with the fact that their mods, their work that they have poured hours into, not to mention lots of creative juice, are just breaking. Why are mods breaking? And what fixes could the Age of Empires team make to help them and make sure that we don't lose out on this wonderful ecosystem that's kept the game going for so very long? So today I'd like to present to you a plea for mod stability, which will be an open letter directly to the Age of Empires team in the words of the modders themselves. So what's the issue? Just to make it abundantly, wildly clear, new patches break custom scenarios and data mods. To give you a direct idea of what this looks like, I asked the modders on my Discord for what their experiences have been with their creations being broken through patches. Please do go support their work. I'll be mostly focusing on the highlighted portions of their comments, so please pause the video if you want to read more of what they have to say. Ozzy says, my main issue is that basic triggers get screwed over. When an update comes around, you have to prepare for it not working. Another issue is that your scenarios have a chance to be corrupted and don't work. Once again, basic triggers get messed up regularly by patches. Nothing is safe. This isn't just a problem that affects the very small percentage of highly complex scenarios, it affects all of them. Christoforos says, for me personally, I wouldn't say there is something that specifically breaks every time, but indeed every patch I've experienced new issues. This means that it isn't an easily diagnosable problem that modders can be ready for. They have to put out new fires every single time a new update is released, many of which they may not have faced before. Chumbeke, coming from the Age of Empires 3 side of things, mentions that they have little to no documentation on certain features such as custom building destruction animations. And certain patches and updates broke things that even messed up official campaign missions and content, but shows once again that nothing is safe. Even sometimes official stuff breaks. Though in this particular case, we can also say that AoE 3 was shit-canned very abruptly, and so perhaps that has something to do with it. Admiral Willalow describes a couple major projects that he put a ton of work into and had tested with friends, but when they were broken after a number of updates, responses from devs were slow or non-existent, and usually some variation of we are tracking the issue, i.e. we acknowledge that the bug exists, but no hint of if or when it will be fixed. For him, the bottom line was it wasn't worth his time to try building anything on that kind of sandy foundation. And he got the sense that the editor just wasn't a priority for the devs at all. I know some of you out there are like, well, of course not. That shouldn't be a priority. They should be focusing on the main game. I disagree with that, and we will talk about why a little later in the video. Goku mentions, sometimes I can manage the update. My scenarios are made entirely in parser using Python, which doesn't take any time to fix. That, by the way, is a ridiculous level of commitment. Imagine having to build scenarios in Python just to avoid them getting broken. However, there are still problems that are out of control as modders or map makers. For example, he describes something where the Liao Dao implementation screwed up all RPG scenarios that had a spell system, of which there were several. And so just one small change completely wipes, again, tens if not hundreds of hours of dev time from the mod store, and means that a lot of the people who love those mods are completely shit out of luck. Goku concludes, we are essentially being punished for making content for this game. This is not an uncommon sentiment. Next, Forward Gold mentions that the fact that mods get broken so easily makes him less motivated to start a new project, because he knows it's going to work well only for maybe a month if he gets lucky. Most of the times, the fix is easy, just 5 minutes or so. But when there is a new DLC, a lot of things get broken, and it feels like you just want to let the mod die. Updating after a DLC can be up to a day of work in some cases. So now that hopefully the modders have illustrated the problem here, what can be done about this? Well, fortunately, they had a lot of great solutions in mind as well that I'd like to share with you. For one, HF mentions a couple of other games like Stellaris, Minecraft, V Rising that have a lot of extra content over time that was not compatible with existing mods and similar. In V Rising, if you want to load a previous world, then the game automatically closes, launches a previous version, and loads that world. And the best part, she believes, is that it doesn't take all that much extra space. This means that we could see a system wherein you can build a mod on a specific version of the game, and then anyone who wants to play your mod relaunches that version. Now, another option that she mentions is adding things in a way that's not too destructive when it comes to the current system, where the devs could add new functionalities or expand on current ones without having to touch data that's currently in the game. This is something that I personally don't understand as much, but it seems plausible at least. And lastly, she mentions that there's a fan-made tool that allows you to automate mod creation so you don't have to start from scratch. It would be nice to see the devs make an interface for such a program. I'm sure that fan would be willing to work with the devs if reached out to. Now, Chumbeke also adds, again from the AoE 3 side of things, that back when the game still had updates, communication was also really good. They implemented a very robust system for mod files explicitly so updates to the game wouldn't break our mods. That means it's possible to do this. You might say, oh, Age of Empires 3 is a very different engine. That is true, but the communication part, that's something that could absolutely improve. And AoE 3 was, from what I understand, a much smaller team with a much smaller budget. And as such, they definitely have the resources to spare with a much larger, better funded AoE 2 team. And what's more, he follows a lot more mod features got implemented from explicit requests from the community. I will credit the AoE 2 team. They have done this, but the communication has been rather opaque. Forward Gold continues that the reason why mods get broken is because of the tight structure of the data it's stored in. It feels very 90s, which is unsurprising considering the game's origins, of course. The devs have started moving away from that lower level format into something more modern. Right now you can create drop sites and other cool stuff using JSON files instead of the Genie editor. Those tend to hold up better during updates. Now, this sort of modernization of the backend is of course a good thing and will likely do a lot of work by itself. And then Admiral Wololo also adds to his previous points that the devs seem to have listened to many requests and suggestions. The editor is capable of much more now than ever it was. That is huge. That is great. We love that, but it still breaks all the time. As he says, there's much more that can be done, especially for modding support and testing things to minimize regressions before releasing a patch. He follows up though, I've come to believe that ROI, return on investment, may be as pressing or more so than technical issues. Amateur creators put a ton of time into creating and maintaining their work, and without some kind of patronage system, people who are talented enough to create great AoE 2 content are talented enough to create 10 times their returns, recognition, money, views, whatever, by working on something else. It would be very wise, he says, for the devs to seek out talented but lesser-known creators and put together something like a good faith Victors and Vanquished, where they feature the best work from a variety of creators, put some actual polish and new graphics into their scenarios and campaigns, and release them as a properly advertised and properly priced, I might add, DLC. Now, to summarize all that our modders have suggested here, this is in rough order of priority as best I could see it. To those whom it may concern, if you would like to preserve and promote modding in Age of Empires 2, which you absolutely should, the following improvements would be wildly appreciated. 1. Implement changes less destructively in a way that doesn't screw up existing formatting in the deep morass of files in AoE 2's backend code. 2. Please provide better communication, a direct line for support for modders and similar, such that they can get active help with their scenarios and creations being destroyed when patches go live. 3. Allow mods to run on older versions of the game. In my opinion, this is the single most important and easy fix to this problem. The only reason it is not number 1 on the list is I do not understand the technicals behind it, and I acknowledge it may be harder than I am giving it credit. 4. Create a tool for fixing broken mods. Again, we have a fan-made one. Reach out to that dude. Ask him if you can use it. I'm sure that he would be willing to talk to you. And lastly, the most controversial. 5. Create a patronage system or retry the Victors and Vanquished model without the issues. I know many people in the community are hesitant about this. Obviously, we don't want there to just be some sort of weird Steam store with a whole bunch of slop. So of course this would have to be approached with some nuance. However, I think if you were willing to reach out to community members who have made high quality scenarios, offer them things like a bit of a voiceover, maybe an intro slide, basic stuff that shouldn't cost you very much, release these in an official bundle, give the creator a generous cut, and keep the price cheap, I think you will find quite a few takers, especially on that final point if the price is right. Okay, hopefully I have done the modders justice here. I hope I have communicated their words effectively, and again, please do go support their work. But just to close out the video, I want to ask one more question. Why does modding matter? This may seem like a brain-dead question. Like, of course modding matters. Naturally, it's really important. Naturally, it's the reason why the game has survived for multiple decades. Why we have Forgotten? Why, because of Forgotten, we have a return to the rest of the game? Why we've had countless classic scenarios, why the game had life breathed back into it? Even things like the pro scene, while not explicitly enabled by modding per se, only got to the point we see now because of massive amounts of fan effort and contribution during the dark ages of Voobly. Not to say that Voobly was bad, Voobly was awesome, but it was certainly the dark ages of the game. Modding is the reason why games can last beyond the point where devs stop pumping money into them. Inevitably, Age of Empires 2 will stop being actively supported by Microsoft, and at that point, it is going to be fan-created content that keeps us going. Any game that figures out how to best foster and mobilize the creative energy of its fans is a game that can live forever. This is the case across all genres, and I defy you to find me an example of a game that does otherwise, that has been extremely long-lived, even well after dev support, for reasons besides fan-created content. This is the way we can last forever. And if Microsoft says, oh, well, I really don't care about that, it won't be making me money at that point. Yes, it will, Microsoft. It will be making you money, because if there's an enormous amount of fan-made content, more people will want to buy the game and want to buy the tools and content that you guys put out to support it. If you put a good patronage system in place, you can even get a steady revenue stream off of this, assuming you do so in a non-predatory and good faith manner. Now, something of note, I often use terms like dev and Microsoft kind of interchangeably here. I totally understand that the devs behind Age of Empires 2 very likely have the game's absolute best interests at heart and probably really want to see modding supported and fostered. That's where many of the team came from, is from a modding background. This letter is directed towards decision makers, as with so many other of my whinging style videos. I would like the people who can actually make a change on this to see this video, to hear this video, and to implement as much of what has been suggested as possible. Please enable Age of Empires to live past the point where Microsoft is actively funding it. So to the well-meaning, hard-working devs behind Age of Empires 2, thank you for your work. We salute you. We appreciate you. You have a lot you're dealing with. But to the decision makers, think about the upsides here. Please enable our game to live forever. Thank you guys for taking the time. I know this is a bit of an unusual one. I promise the next time you see from me, it will be a slightly more conventional video. But until then, my name is Robbie Howell, and ciao for now.